Naruto, the Fuinjutsu professor of the Ninja Academy. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyright or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 226, Kakuza's secret weapon. After being knocked away by a punch, Kakuza rolled around like a rolling god for many rounds before stopping. After a while, he supported himself with one hand with some difficulty, and there was even a lot of shock on his face that was difficult to conceal. What a terrible strange power! Although he was driving the earth grudge tentacles with all his strength to attack Xia Yan, he did not relax in the protection of his body because of his usual caution. He still wrapped his body with a layer of protection with the earth spear. As a result, the sudden punch from the side just now actually caused spiderweb-like cracks on his hardened skin. Yes, the once invincible earth spear defense was broken by two different means on the same day. And unlike Yushin Xia Yan's high-level skills that combined water escape and wind escape, the punch just now was purely an explosion of physical force. If he was not experienced and decisively took advantage of the situation to be knocked away and unloaded most of the force, then I am afraid that the punch would be enough to make him, who was already seriously injured, completely lose his ability to fight. This level of terrible strange power, even in Kakuza's long life, has not been seen many times. The one who impressed him the most was, of course, the ninja god, Xia Yan, with whom he had fought. People only knew that the ninja god suppressed the ninja world with his invincible word-release secret technique, but they didn't know that what was truly powerful was his completely unreasonable physical ability. The amazing physical strength, strange strength, recovery ability, and the huge amount of chakra rooted in the body were the biggest reliance of Xia Yan to stand at the top of the ninja world. As for word release, it was just a bonus. Perhaps it was because Kakuza personally experienced the cheating physical ability of the other party when he assassinated the first generation, and knew that under normal circumstances, even if he worked hard for a lifetime, he would never be able to see the other party's back, that he chose to steal the earth grudge secret technique and transform himself into such a half-human, half-ghost appearance. However, after he learned of the death of the first generation more than 20 years ago, he thought he would never see this kind of power again. Unexpectedly, today, he has the opportunity to relive his old dream again. Kakuza slowly stood up and looked at Xia Yan, who was walking towards him not far away, with a complicated look. As expected, this Princess Xia Yan is the granddaughter of that person after all. She must have used all her strength to punch just now, and it was even close to the power of her grandfather Xia Yan's casual punch when he was in a bad state. Well, although there are a lot of adjectives, Kakuza swore that he was really praising Xia Yan. After all, Kakuza, who had personally experienced the Warring States period, knew that compared to the Warring States period when gods and demons were dancing wildly, the current ninja world seemed to have entered the Dharma ending age. Although the overall strength of each ninja village is still improving, in terms of top combat power, it can't catch up with the first generation of 5 kids who experienced the baptism of the Warring States period. So Xia Yan's current strength is already very worthy of pride. But Kakuza still had some doubts in his heart at this time. Why did Xia Yan, who was just a show-off and could only sit on the ground and tremble, suddenly become so powerful now? And how come she seemed to have changed a set of clothes in just a short while, and her whole body was clean? Did Xia Yan go to take a shower while he and Xia Yan were fighting outside? In Kakuza's decades of ninja career, he had never seen such an operation. Recalling the strangeness he had noticed before, Kakuza suddenly had a guess, seeing that Xia Yan and Xia Yan who followed him had already arrived not far in front of him. Kakuza suddenly had a tentacle, and then stabbed his palm under the vigilant eyes of the two, leaving a bloody wound. Immediately afterwards, he swung his arm violently, and the blood on his palm also flew out and flew towards Xia Yan. So in Xia Yan's field of vision, she saw a pool of white unknown liquid shot by Kakuza flying towards her. After dodging sideways with a look of disgust, Xia Yan began to speed up, and flashed to the top of Kakuza's head, and her right foot raised high fell like a giant axe. Painful sky kick. Boom. With a loud bang, the ground instantly sank and cracked into countless pieces. In the diffuse dust, Kakuza's retreating figure flew out. It seemed that he still avoided Xia Yan's amazingly powerful attack. As expected, even if the destructive power is terrible, it is useless if you can't hit it. Kakuza, who successfully distanced himself, analyzed it in his mind, but he was more concerned about the previous problem. No reaction, Kakuza muttered to himself. The reason why he suddenly hurt himself and threw the blood at Xia Yan just now was not some performance art, but to verify his previous conjecture. Hemophobia. As a senior ninja, Kakuza naturally knew about this occupational disease of ninjas. If Tsumed really suffered from hemophobia, then her previous strange behaviors would have a perfect explanation. For example, why did she close her eyes in a show-off manner every time she'd fought before, and why she couldn't move when she witnessed the death of the fake Yushin Xia Yan, and even why she changed her clothes. Kakuza thought he had cracked the secret that Tsumed had been hiding, and was even a little surprised. After all, this means that he has mastered a weakness of Tsumed that is related to life and death. If Tsumed doesn't want others to know about her hemophobia, then she will have to let him do whatever he wants. More importantly, in this extremely disadvantageous situation, he can also find an opportunity to turn the tables. Unfortunately, his guess seems to have failed. Did he think too much? Kakuza looked at Tsumed, who rushed towards him from the dust again, frowning. If it wasn't hemophobia, then her previous strange behavior seemed inexplicable. And what Kakuza was particularly concerned about was the glasses Tsumed was wearing at this time. After all, Tsumed suddenly put on glasses, which looked strange. However, as an antique for decades, he couldn't understand even the game consoles in the game hall, let alone the AR glasses with higher technological content. Even if he guessed 100 times, he would never guess that Xia Yan would use a pair of glasses, which temporarily freed Tsumed from the trouble of hemophobia. So at this moment, he was in a state of confusion. Seeing Tsumed attacking again with an excited look on her face, Kakuza knew very well that it was not the time to think about this problem. Since this last resort also didn't work, he had to face the attacks of Xia Yan and Tsumed at the same time. You know, these two guys have the means to break his Earth Spear defense. In fact, even if he is not in good condition now, he still has the confidence to win against one of them alone. But to fight two people alone in his current state, even Kakuza couldn't help but feel a little heavy in his heart. It seems that I still have to use that trick. How many years? I haven't been forced to use that trick for a long time. Kakuza didn't recite these words in his heart, but said them directly. His unusual performance made Tsumed, who wanted to attack, stop, and Xia Yan, who was behind him, stared at Kakuza with a vigilant look. For such old-school strongmen, never underestimate how many tricks they have. Then they saw that countless black tentacles emerged from Kakuza's body again, waving around his body. However, unlike before, a strange mask squeezed out of the hole on his shoulder, which looked even weirder. If what he looked like just now was Kakuza's second form, then his current appearance could be considered his third form. Sure enough, the boss of the popular manga would be embarrassed to go out and meet people without several forms. HMPH, playing tricks. Tsumed, who didn't know that others couldn't attack when they were transformed, seemed to decide to take the initiative, so she suddenly dodged and rushed towards Kakuza, who was still in the process of transforming. Xia Yan, who had read the original work and knew that this was Kakuza's strongest form, rushed forward when he saw that he had no time to stop Tsumed. It was a pity that the two of them were still a step late. At the same time that Kakuza completed his transformation, his strongest attack was launched. The masks on both of his shoulders opened their mouths at the same time, and the huge chakra of fire and wind jutsu had been condensed in them respectively. Fire jutsu. Headache. Wind jutsu. Suppression. Fire and wind jutsu combined ninjutsu. Flame and wind. With the combination of fire style and wind style, a huge sea of fire appeared instantly, emitting amazing heat and rushing towards Xia Yan and Tsumed. Seeing this, Tsumed immediately stopped and punched the ground. Under her control, a huge piece of earth rose from in front of her, like a reef to block the scouring of the sea of fire. Xia Yan also caught up at this time, pulling Tsumed to drill into the ground. Earth style. Earth Dragon Hide. As Xia Yan's specialty, even with Tsumed, he quickly traveled a long way underground, and then broke out of the ground from the area not affected by the sea of fire. As soon as they came out of the ground, they were alert and prepared to meet Kakuza's next attack. Unexpectedly, they actually saw an incredible scene. Kakuza seemed to have no idea when he tilted the angle of the two masks to spray fire and wind styles downward, so he also took off into the air due to the powerful reaction force, and flew away like a flash rocket. You Natsuiko, Tsumed, you've been fooled, this is my escape route. Even in the air, Kakuza's rare and somewhat proud voice was still echoing, as if he was not ashamed of his escape at all. After all, in the days after he just got the Earth Grudge, he was hunted down by the Takegaku village where he originally lived for many years. At the time, Takegaku village even issued a high bounty order for his arrest, causing countless bounty hunters to frantically search for his whereabouts. So for him, running away is simply a common thing. After all, as long as he escapes successfully, he will have a chance for revenge one day. Even without revenge, as long as he has enough patience, there'll always be a day to dance on the other party's grave. It's just that after he has mastered his magic skills and killed all those pursuers one by one, he rarely needs to escape. So no one even knows that his most proficient wind and fire compound ninjutsu, which makes countless people terrified, was actually used as a means of escape at the beginning. Chapter 227. Evil Spell. When seeing Kakuza suddenly transformed into the Iron Man of the ninja world and flew away, Xia Yan and Summit were both confused for a moment. This guy ran away too easily, right? Obviously, he hadn't even used his third form yet, and the outcome was still unknown, but Kakuza just ran away like this. What about his dignity as a senior ninja? Well, in fact, his decisive behavior of running away might be what a senior ninja should do. At least in this way, he completely eliminated the possibility of a rollover, while Xia Yan and Summit, who had originally had the upper hand, felt uncomfortable as if they had eaten a fly. Xia Yan felt the most uncomfortable because he had worked hard to use all his best skills, and relied on his memory of the original work, and he barely managed to injure Kakuza to this extent. If Summit cooperated now, it would really be possible to keep him here forever, which could be regarded as solving a potential enemy in advance. Who knew that Kakuza ran away so decisively as if he had anticipated such an outcome? Sure enough, this guy has been able to stand firm in the ninja world for many years, and there is a reason for that, especially his last fire and wind ninjutsu, which made Xia Yan, the master of escape, applaud. He actually combined the two actions of attack and escape perfectly in the same move. First, he attacked and blocked the enemy with a sea of fire, and then he used the reaction force of the move to calmly leave in the air. Even if time could flow back to the moment before Kakuza performed this move, Xia Yan couldn't think of any way to keep him. So it's not an exaggeration to call that move an S-level escape skill. I don't know what the name of Kakuza's fire and wind composite ninjutsu is. Is it better than my pulsator washing machine technique? But since it combines wind and fire ninjutsu, let's just call it Storm Must Fire, because he felt that this move also inspired him. Xia Yan quickly calmed down his depressed mood, and even had the mind to complain in his heart, trying to have fun in the midst of suffering. However, Summit on the side was not as generous as him. She was still holding back her anger and had no place to vent. After all, she had just gotten rid of her fear of blood and was planning to show off her skills. But before she could even fight with Kakuza, he ran away. This was not even a warm-up. Summit, who felt a little unsatisfied, subconsciously glanced at Xia Yan on the side. If she asked Xia Yan to fight with her now, would it be a bit too much? But when she saw Xia Yan's pale cheeks due to excessive chakra consumption, she finally sighed and did not make such a request. Forget it, with Xia Yan's small body, he could not withstand her tossing. And there was another thing that worried Summit, that was Kakuza's attempt to test with blood just now. Obviously, because of her previous unusual behavior, the experienced Kakuza noticed the problem. Fortunately, with the help of Xia Yan's glasses, the secret of her hemophobia was not exposed, but it was still a hidden danger. However, she did not have a good remedy now, so she could only be more careful in the future. So, with this feeling of being neither up nor down, the offensive and defensive battle with Kakuza finally came to an end. Wait. Who knew that at this moment, Summit seemed to suddenly think of something, and subconsciously ran a few steps in the direction where Kakuza flew away. But soon she also realized that even if she chased after him now, it was impossible to find Kakuza, this cunning guy, so she had to stomp her feet and stop. Summit, what's wrong with you? Xia Yan asked curiously. Summit turned around and gritted her teeth, as if she had eaten the original flavor of the 9-turn large intestine. Ryoma, she squeezed out the name from her teeth word by word. I just remembered that when those guys talked to Kakuza at the beginning, they mentioned that he was actually hired by the little bastard Ryoma. They even said that guy was the real mastermind behind it. I thought he was really so nice to me because he knew my grandfather, but I didn't expect that he had bad intentions. At this point, Summit suddenly reacted. By the way, although Kakuza ran away, those guys are still hanging in the game hall. We couldn't just force them to find out the whereabouts of that bastard Ryoma. Summit made up her mind and walked towards the tavern with a sneer on her face. Seeing this, Xia Yan couldn't help but think of Summit wearing red-framed glasses, holding a whip and a candle, and torturing those pigs hanging in the air in a tortoise-shell style. It seems that I have read too many weird books recently for the development of Onmyoji Go. Although Xia Yan is still looking forward to such a scene, it's a pity that their battle with Kakuza has actually been a long time. Although the fog was blocking the view, the large-scale ninjutsu performed by both sides would definitely attract a lot of attention. In order to avoid complications, Xia Yan planned to run away quickly, so he didn't have much time to be a famous detective for Tsunade. So he could only be a spoiler for Tsunade and reveal the answer in advance. Tsunade-sama, please wait a moment. In fact, you don't need to ask them about this. Because you have already seen the so-called Ryoma just now. Tsunade stopped immediately and looked back at Xia Yan, with a slightly stunned expression. Could it be? She had just met a lot of people, but there were not many who really impressed her. Excluding all the impossible, no matter how unbelievable the rest is, it is the truth. Tsunade soon came up with a bold guess, and her eyes widened. At Xia Yan's smiling gesture, she suddenly realized. Could it be that Ryoma is the guy who looks exactly like Xia Yan and was killed by Kakuza just now? Xia Yan, who was about to nod his head, almost sprained his neck because he had to brake suddenly. Tsunade-sama, you have too much imagination. Xia Yan rubbed the back of his neck and smiled bitterly, but unfortunately, you guessed wrong. That guy is actually just a bandit I caught nearby. I originally planned to let Kakashi practice actual combat. But just now I found a group of guys with bad intentions outside the game hall. Just in case, I turned him into my stand-in to replace me. Tsunade-sama, you also know what happened next. I didn't expect that this stand would really come in handy. Tsunade was a little dissatisfied with Xia Yan's understatement. After all, if it weren't for Xia Yan's arrangement, she wouldn't be so easily triggered by hemophobia. But what made her more curious was another question. It is indeed not difficult to change someone into your appearance with the help of chakra. But when you appeared, I checked the appearance of the corpse, and still found no flaws. It's not projection, nor is it disguise. Normally, no matter what method is used, after he dies, without the support of chakra, the effect should disappear. Xia Yan, how did you do it? Xia Yan explained with a smile. In fact, this is also the effect of a ninjutsu based on transformation technique that I am developing. But the target is not yourself, but others. As for why it can be maintained after the other party's death, it is because the chakra that maintains the transformation technique does not come from him, but is completely provided by me. And I also added the idea of sealing technique. Through the technique drawn in advance, even if he dies, the ninjutsu will still run in his body for a period of time, and it will not be immediately restored to its original state. In this way, a perfect substitute that can be mistaken for the real thing can be created. Seeing Tsunade looking thoughtful, thinking about how to realize this ninjutsu, Xia Yan added. In fact, I originally intended to use this technique in combat, for example, forcing the enemy to become a fat sheep. It's a pity that the preparation for this sheep transformation technique is too complicated, and it can only be used on people whose chakra is much weaker than their own, so I'm afraid it won't be useful in battle for the time being. Turn the enemy into a fat sheep. Tsunade, who was still pondering the principle of this technique, shuddered when she heard Xia Yan's idea. Just imagining herself being turned into a real fat sheep, and unable to remove it by herself, she felt creepy. How did Xia Yan come up with such an evil ninjutsu? Is there really only a fine line between genius and madness? Another question is, why does it have to be a fat sheep? Did the fat sheep eat the grass in Xia Yan's house? Tsunade strongly suspected that Xia Yan's choice of turning people into sheep was actually targeting her. Chapter 228. Horns become dragon horses. Tsunade was worried that if the topic continued, Xia Yan would say something shocking again, so she quickly returned to the topic and asked what she wanted to know most. So Xia Yan, what's the matter with you saying that I have seen Ryoma just now? Xia Yan didn't keep it a secret this time, and said directly. It's very simple, Tsunade-sama, the Ryoma you mentioned is actually the same person as Mr. Kakuza who just left. How is this possible? As soon as Xia Yan finished speaking, Tsunade exclaimed in disbelief, and even subconsciously thought that Xia Yan must be joking. How can they be the same person? Tsunade shook her head repeatedly and said, although Ryoma said that he used to be a bounty hunter, and the two seem to be about the same age, their height and body shape are completely, halfway through, Tsunade suddenly got stuck. Although the two have many things in common, the reason why Tsunade didn't connect the two together at all is that as a medical ninja, she always subconsciously analyzes the body shape and even bone structure of others. And Angle and Ryoma are completely different in height and body shape. However, recalling the brief battle just now, she realized that Kakuza seemed to be someone who could not be viewed with the eyes of ordinary people. Could it be that the black things that came out of his body just now are causing trouble? Tsunade said with difficulty. Xia Yan nodded, and then explained. That thing is called the Earth Grudge, and it is said to be a secret ninjutsu that Kakuza stole from the Takagaku village. Lady Trisanid, you can also see that Kakuza has used that secret technique to transform his body into an inhuman appearance. Even if he uses it to change his height and body shape, there is nothing strange about it. In fact, Kakuza has also made a lot of enemies in his many years of life as a bounty hunter, and he is also a traitor to the Takagaku village. So I think the character Ryoma should be a disguised identity for him, so as to avoid unnecessary trouble because of his real identity. At this point, Xia Yan couldn't help but smile and said, "But speaking of it, Mr. Kakuza still has some bad taste." He actually put the truth directly on the surface. Seeing that Trisanid was still a little puzzled, Xia Yan had to explain further. "Lady Trisanid, you should know that there is a chess piece called Kakuin Shoji. When this chess piece goes deep into the enemy's camp, it can be reversed and upgraded to Ryoma. So at the beginning, Kaku and Ryoma were two sides of the same coin. To be honest, if that wasn't the case, I wouldn't have come up with such a guess the moment Kakuza appeared. Then I used this as a premise to infer, and as a result, all the strange things about this incident suddenly had a reasonable explanation. Even after listening to Xia Yan's explanation, Trisanid still felt a little unbelievable. The young girl Ryoma who often lent her money and gambled with her was actually the notorious bounty hunter Kakuza. This huge gap made her brain a little dazed. But Xia Yan's statement was indeed self-consistent, leaving her with no way to refute it. But, why did he do this? Trisanid finally couldn't help asking this question. Xia Yan heard this, and his eyes suddenly became sharp. "Trisanid, are you really so clueless? It's money. Kakuza is still a bounty hunter, so of course he's after money." Xia Yan spread his hands and said, "Although it's a little unbelievable, Kakuza seems to like money very much. This is not even a secret in the ninja world. It's for money." Trisanid's expression seemed even more unbelievable than before. If Kakuza was lurking beside her because he had a terrible conspiracy that might overthrow Konoha, Trisanid might have found it more acceptable. Unexpectedly, it was for money. From the fact that Trisanid spent money lavishly when gambling, it can be seen that she is a person who has no concept of money. Although ninjas are essentially a profession driven by money, as a princess of the Senju clan, she actually didn't care about the amount of mission rewards. Anyway, no matter how much, she couldn't help but gamble a few times. Even during the recent casino tour, she did encounter many situations where she had no money on hand. But she could either rely on her strength, fishing enforcement to get money from some ruffians, or rely on her superb medical ninjutsu to easily earn a large amount of medical expenses. If that didn't work, she could just borrow money directly. With her pretty face and devilish figure, there are always countless people willing to lend her money, and even expect her to pay it back. And Trisanid often does what they wish and doesn't pay back the money. No matter what, money is basically just a string of numbers for Trisanid. If the amount is huge, it's another matter, but she can't imagine that a senior strongman like Kakuza would actually plot against her for a little money. It seems, it's not a small amount of money. Trisanid thought about it for a while at this time, and found that she seemed to have owed Kakuza a large debt without realizing it. And often the money was won back by Kakuza at the gambling table before she even had it in her hand. It seems like she has returned to the starting point, but the difference is that she has one more IOU. Thinking of the huge debt she owed, Trisanid felt a little sweat on her back. You have to know that Kakuza is not an ordinary creditor. In a one-on-one situation, even Trisanid in her prime did not have the confidence to beat him. And now that she suffers from hemophobia, she might even have a hard time running away. God knows what that guy will do to her if she can't pay back the money. After all, that guy has tentacles on his body. Fortunately, Dragon, Kakuza has never asked me to pay back the money. It seems that it is not time to close the net yet. Trisanid patted her chest and said with a look of fear. But soon a little bit of smugness flashed on her face, and then she suppressed her smile and said seriously, "I didn't expect that Kakuza lent me money with evil intentions. God knows if there is any terrible conspiracy behind it. In order to prevent his evil plan from succeeding, I had to make a painful decision. I won't pay him back the money I owe him." Seeing Trisanid saying the most shameless words with the most righteous expression, Xia Yan had to endure very hard not to roll his eyes. After Trisanid was happy for a while, Xia Yan reminded her quietly, "Lady Trisanid, I don't think I have mentioned to you yet why Mr. Mito asked me to bring you back. I heard that recently many people have come to the Senju mansion with the ice you wrote to collect debts. Lord Mito said that if you continue like this, the Senju clan's foundation will be ruined by you, so he asked me to take you back no matter what." Now it seems that the only person who knows your identity, Lady Trizanid, and has a large number of ice written by you is probably Kakuzu, so it's not that he didn't ask you to pay back, but he knew from the beginning that he couldn't get the money from you, Lady Trizanid, and the real target of cashing out is the Senju clan. After finishing what he said in his heart, Xia Yan ignored Trizanid, who had turned into a stone statue and stood there, and walked straight into the game hall. Now that the boss Kakuzu has run away, we should find a way to deal with the remaining small fry. After a long time, a shrill female voice sounded outside the game hall, startling a flock of birds. Kakuzu, remember this. Chapter 229. After the war, the white fog that had been lingering around the clearing in the woods for a long time finally began to dissipate. The civilians who had been watching from the beginning, as well as the scattered ninjas who were attracted by the sound of the battle, all carefully approached to check the situation. Compared with before the thick fog appeared, the clearing at this time had undergone earth-shaking changes. The wet ground was full of various branches and soil, a mess, and there were many fallen and broken trees around, making it look as if it had just been ravaged by a storm. In addition, there were several deep pits dotted everywhere in the clearing, and ordinary people could hardly imagine that this was caused by human power. Finally, in a corner of the clearing, there was a large area of charred marks, forming a clear boundary with the wet ground not far away, as if they were not in the same world. This wonderful scene that rarely occurs in nature made many ordinary people amazed and once again had a deep understanding of the power of ninjas. Even those ninjas who heard the news were stared at with awe. Although most of them still had no expression on their faces, they were in a state of confusion. Because in fact, they were no less shocked than the civilians. After all, the traces of a battle of this scale were not something that ordinary ninjas like them could create. Why would masters of this level fight so fiercely in such a place where there was nothing? They were all puzzled. Hey, look over there. At this moment, someone pointed to an especially clean open space not far away and shouted. Everyone looked over there, and then many people were stunned for a moment before they realized that the game hall that was located there before had disappeared without a trace. Then waves of wailing sounded one after another in the open space, leaving those who came later confused. Obviously, the guys who were wailing were all regulars who followed the game hall all the way. So when they found that the arcade had disappeared, and the signboard that told them where the arcade would be tomorrow did not appear, they soon realized that they would not be able to play those magical game machines for a long time. Unexpectedly, after everyone wailed for a while, they easily accepted this fact. Perhaps it was because the arcade's elusive style and the interesting games in the arcade that they had never heard of, or made them feel like they were in a dream. Just like Yoichi Mataro would eventually leave the Dragon Palace, they also knew that this overly beautiful dream would eventually end, so they had already prepared themselves mentally. Of course, there was another reason: the arcade was too expensive. Even if it didn't disappear, they would soon have no money to patronize it. In addition to this group of players who were comforting themselves, there was also a group of thugs among the ordinary people who were left outside by the creditors. They looked at the empty space after the arcade disappeared, and they were also a little confused. So, did the boss and his team succeed or fail? More importantly, where are they now? Fortunately, all their questions were answered soon, because at this moment, someone accidentally walked into the woods not far from the original site of the game hall, and then a terrified scream echoed over the woods. Curious people quickly approached to take a look, and most of them were so scared that they fell to the ground. Even the ninjas couldn't help but gasp. Because they saw that on the ground in the woods, there were actually human heads neatly placed. This extremely eerie scene made many people who witnessed it unforgettable for a long time. Even in the ghost stories about the God-hidden game hall that circulated in this area in the future, the scene in front of us would be the ending. The greedy villains were punished by heaven for coveting the mysterious game hall, and their heads were cut off and neatly placed on the ground, and the game hall never appeared again. After everyone was surprised, they soon discovered that those people were not dead, but the fact that their bodies were buried in the ground was not well known to the world. That night, the moon was bright in the sky. On the edge of a remote cliff, a hemispherical white building stood. Obviously, this was Xia Yan's capsule house. Xia Yan, who had been busy all day, had just finished taking a shower. After walking out of the bathroom, he still felt a little sore and weak. It seems that even if he just overdrew a little chakra, his body still doesn't feel good. But just paying this small price to save his life in the hands of a strong man like Kakuzu is actually very worthwhile. While comforting himself, Xia Yan walked around the room and found that only Shishin was in the room. At this time, she was sitting at the dining table, writing furiously, looking very focused. After all, she was called out by Tsumed at the beginning of the holiday, and she often had to follow Tsumed around, and she didn't have much time to do her homework. Now that school is about to start, she naturally has to race against time to finish her homework. Alas, it's not easy for Xia to have such a teacher. Xia Yan sighed in his heart, and then decided not to disturb her. He quietly opened the door and came out of the house. As soon as he went out, he saw Tsumed waving her fist not far away. Pikachu, it's decided that you are the one, use 100,000 volts. Tsumed was shouting at the air in front of her with a focused face. If this scene was seen by other people, they would probably have the same idea. What a beautiful girl, it's a pity that she is a psychopath, but Xia Yan naturally knew that Tsumed was just playing the game on Moji Go through the AR glasses he invented. So in that empty space where nothing seems to be, in Tsumed's vision, there is probably an exciting battle between monsters going on. It is worth mentioning that the initial Shikigami used by Tsumed now is not the three great families provided by Ome before, but a yellow mouse that can discharge electricity. To be honest, Xia Yan was also very speechless when he learned about this. Because this is actually a secret Easter egg he set in the game. Once someone hesitates when choosing the three great families and fails to make a decision for more than 5 minutes, NPC owner will provide the player with a new option. That is the yellow electric mouse used to introduce the Shikigami at the beginning, but what Xia Yan didn't expect was that Tsumed was hesitant at the time because she didn't know whether the choice of the three great families would be related to the use of the AR glasses to relieve hemophobia, so she couldn't make a decision for a full 5 minutes. As a result, the Easter egg he carefully prepared was discovered when someone tried it for the first time. This made Xia Yan not know whether he should be happy or speechless. 5 minutes is too easy. To avoid the proliferation of Pikachu, let's set it to 1 hour in the future. After thinking about it, Xia Yan happened to see Tsumed throwing out a ball of air and catching another ball of air. Yo, I caught another green caterpillar. Tsumed said to herself happily. The illustration says that this green caterpillar is the descendant of the legendary beast Rayquaza. I can tell it has unlimited potential. I don't know if it's the bug Xia Yan mentioned. This green caterpillar is everywhere. I have to catch more of them before he fixes this problem. That, chickens are actually descendants of dinosaurs, but this doesn't prevent them from being served on the table. Xia Yan really wanted to explain this to Tsumed, but seeing her excited look, he decided to give up. After all, although Tsumed is smiling so happily now, Xia Yan knows that she is just using the game to escape reality. Because she just learned a shocking fact today, it turns out that Kakuza has been taking the IOU she signed to the Senju clan to collect debts. In addition to the fact that she was fooled by Kakuza, what makes Tsumed even more headache is that the fact that she owes money and does not pay it back must have also spread to the Senju clan. The granddaughter of the god of ninja world, the princess of the Senju clan is actually a dog bead. Thinking of how everyone in the clan will look at her, Tsumed feels a little numb on her scalp. So in fact, Xia Yan told Tsumed about this, but gave her another reason not to go back to Konoha. But since Xia Yan has already taken out the killer AR glasses, how could he let Tsumed escape from his palm? How to make Tsumed return to Konoha obediently, Xia Yan even has several backup plans. So now let Tsumed be happy for a while. After all, when she returns to the village, she may not be so happy. With a gloating smile on his lips, Xia Yan did not bother Tsumed, who was collecting caterpillars, and walked to the edge of the cliff. Kakashi was sitting on a big rock on the edge of the cliff, staring blankly at the broken blade in his hand. The bright moonlight fell silently, making the broken white fan short sword emit a silver-white light, which inexplicably had a kind of incomplete beauty. Teacher Xia Yan. Kakashi soon noticed the footsteps, turned around and saw that it was Xia Yan, and greeted him. Xia Yan glanced at the broken blade in his hand, and felt a little emotional. Unexpectedly, with this variable, the white fan short sword still couldn't escape the fate of breaking, and it was broken several years earlier. I'm sorry, Kakashi, I didn't expect that a ninja of Kakuza's level would appear in this mission. Xia Yan said apologetically, not only did you almost lose your life, but your father's relics also became like this. Kakashi shook his head and said, no, I took the initiative to request to join this mission. I can't blame you, teacher. And encountering various accidents during the mission is also inevitable. Even if you lose your life because of this, you can only blame yourself for not being good enough in learning. And didn't you save me at the time, teacher? I even missed the best opportunity to attack Kakuza because of this, so I should be the one to say sorry. Hearing Kakashi, who was only 5 or 6 years old, say such old-fashioned words, Xia Yan felt a little helpless, and couldn't help but stretched out his hand to rub his head fiercely and said, What nonsense are you talking about? Isn't it a teacher's responsibility to protect students? Can I watch you being killed by Kakuza and remain indifferent? If that's the case, how can I have the face to go back to see Obito and the others? Kakashi, who originally wanted to avoid the clutches of the teacher, of course failed. After finally getting rid of it, when he heard Xia Yan's words, he couldn't help but say, "Teacher, do you also think that the lives of your companions are more important than the mission?" Chapter 230 Broken Blade Mission or Companion. So Kakashi is still struggling with this stupid question? Xia Yan felt helpless. After all, this question is just like who would you save first if your mother and girlfriend fell into the sea? There is no perfect answer at all. However, when he saw that Kakashi had a frown on his face and looked bitter and resentful at such a young age, he sighed and replied, "I'm sorry, teacher, I can't give you a standard answer. Because depending on the specific circumstances, even the same person may give completely different answers. For example, a person who puts the mission first will not decide to sacrifice his teammates for an ordinary cat-catching mission. And if it's a mission that concerns the survival of the village, there are many people who are willing to sacrifice their own lives, let alone their companions. Of course, these are extreme examples. Many times, the weight of the mission and the companions may not be that different. So until the moment comes when they need to be put on the two ends of the scale, I'm afraid no one can give a definite answer." Xia Yan said, then turned his gaze to Kakashi, and said with a slightly teasing tone, "Just like before, I clearly told you to stay outside and not get involved in the fight between me and Mr. Kakuza, but when you thought I was dead, you still launched a suicidal attack on him." Kakashi lowered his head with a depressed look on his face, and it seemed that he was still worried about his actions at the time. "I just don't know if it was because of the shame of making a mistake, the fear of almost losing his life, or the confusion of violating the ninja code." Seeing this, Xia Yan once again ruffled Kakashi's hair into a white mess, and then smiled. "Don't make such an expression. Although I am angry about your self-willed behavior as the captain of this mission, as your teacher, I am still very relieved. And you will see later that Mr. Kakuza has transformed his body into a monster. He is not an opponent that can be defeated by a successful sneak attack alone, so you don't have to blame yourself so much. If I could tell you the plan at the beginning, you wouldn't be in danger, and your chakra short sword wouldn't be broken." Xia Yan gently patted his forehead when he said this. "If you hadn't told me, I almost forgot. I have something to give you." Kakashi finally raised his head after hearing this, and then saw Xia Yan took out a handkerchief and opened it. Inside was a broken blade. Obviously, this was the other half of the white fan broken blade in Kakashi's hand. After the broken blade was bounced off by Kakuza's arm, he had no time to look for it. Even after the battle, after those large-scale ninjutsu bombardments, the battlefield had long been unrecognizable and in a mess. Because he didn't want to delay everyone's departure because of his own affairs, he had to give up. Kakashi thought that this thing would definitely not be found, but he didn't expect that the two broken blades would be reunited one day. "Actually, I happened to see this thing after the battle, but I was busy dealing with the aftermath and leaving, so I forgot to return it to you. It's just a pity that once this kind of chakra short sword is broken, it is basically difficult to repair unless it is recast. Whether to recast or keep it as a souvenir, it's up to you to decide." Xia Yan explained while handing the broken blade to Kakashi. However, Kakashi did not immediately take the broken blade handed over by Xia Yan, but showed hesitation. After a change of expression, Kakashi still did not take the broken blade, but handed the handle he had been holding to Xia Yan. "Teacher, I remember that this kind of chakra metal has many applications in sealing techniques. Rather than recasting or leaving it idle, it will definitely be more useful in your hands." Kakashi looked relieved after saying this, as if he had planned this before Xia Yan gave him another broken blade. Xia Yan raised his eyebrows slightly and said, "Kakashi, are you sure? You know, even if it's broken, this short sword is still worth 1 or 2 Ashumas. No, it's worth tens of millions of taels. It doesn't matter. Compared to what you taught me and saved my life, my broken short sword is nothing. And I began to realize in this battle that this short sword may not be suitable for me, so its breaking may be a good thing, just in time to give me free time to learn more things." Kakashi said calmly, and even put the handle of the sword in his hand on the handkerchief. "Well, since you said so, I'll take it." After Xia Yan said this, he wrapped the handkerchief again and put it in his arms, doing it in one go. Although Kakashi had indeed decided to give the broken blade to his teacher, he still thought that the teacher would refuse many times before accepting it. Seeing that he was so straightforward, his expression was still a little strange. "Ha ha, I was just kidding." Xia Yan smiled and said, I have already said that teaching you and saving you are my duties as a teacher and captain. If I accept such a valuable thing, wouldn't it be a change of attitude? But you want to put aside swordsmanship for a while and find your future path by learning other things. Then I will keep it for you, and by the way, help you see if it is possible to perfectly repair it. In fact, I was also very interested in this chakra knife used by White Fang, and I wanted to borrow it from you to observe it. Now is a good time for me to see it enough. Kakashi thought about it and nodded to show that he had no objection. Then the two chatted for a while. Kakashi asked Xia Yan about some problems he encountered in learning the sealing technique recently, and Xia Yan also patiently answered. After a while, Xia Yan said goodbye and left. But after walking a few steps, he suddenly seemed to remember something and turned around and said, by the way, about your question at the beginning, Kakashi, although it is not a real answer, but in my opinion, the best way is to never let the day when you need to make a choice come. Xia Yan smiled and explained, instead of worrying about what to do when the time comes, it is better to work hard from now on to train yourself and have enough strength to deal with all the problems, so that you don't need to choose between missions and companions at all. But, Kakashi hesitated to speak, and it was obvious that Xia Yan's answer could not solve his confusion. After all, the man's strength was even inferior to that of the three ninjas, but he still had to choose between missions and companions. So what the teacher said was just a beautiful fantasy, and he always felt that he was perfunctory. Then he heard Xia Yan's expected smile. Of course, this is just an ideal situation. Human power is always limited. Perhaps after all the efforts, there'll still be a day when you need to make a choice. But at the time, no matter what choice you make, at least you can have a clear conscience, instead of regretting that you didn't make the greatest effort in the past. Do your best and leave the rest to fate. This is probably my answer. At this point, Xia Yan took out the handkerchief wrapped with two broken blades from his arms, and suddenly changed the subject. Kakashi, you should also know that weapons made of chakra metal are not as strong as people imagine. It is only because of its powerful chakra conduction ability that allows the user to infuse chakra into the weapon to the greatest extent, making it indestructible. Conversely, the user's chakra control will also directly affect the strength of the chakra weapon. So it's not that this short sword can't match Mr. Kakaza's Earth Escape Jutsu, but on the one hand, Kakashi, your original chakra control is still too weak, and you can't fully exert the power of this sword. On the other hand, you were too emotional at the time, so your chakra control was not as good as usual, which caused the sword to break. Chakra is composed of spiritual energy and physical energy, so it is an indisputable fact that emotions can greatly affect the use of chakra. There have been many people who have burst out with extraordinary strength because of excitement and turned defeat into victory. However, when using a chakra sword, perhaps what is more needed is a calm mind at all times. Although I have only met Senior Sakumo a few times, but the fact that he can dominate the battlefield with only a short sword and leave behind the name of the terrifying White Fang shows that he must be a very calm person in battle and will not be overwhelmed by momentary impulse. Such a person may appear gentle on the surface, but once he makes up his mind, 8 horses can't pull him back. So no matter how the world sees it, I believe that even at the last moment of his life, Senior Sakumo never regretted his choice. After finishing what he wanted to say, Xia Yan left, leaving Kakashi alone sitting on the boulder, staring at the silvery white full moon in the sky for a long time without saying a word. Chapter 231 Karma. After returning to his room, Xia Yan first placed the two broken blades on the desk. After thinking for a while, he took out a storage card from his bosom and placed it on the desk to unseal it. It turned into a somewhat horrible arm with a lot of black tentacles connected to the end of the arm. White Fang's broken blade, plus Kakaza's broken arm, this is what he gained from this battle. No, perhaps it should also be counted as the valuable experience of fighting against masters like Kakaza. After all, after this battle, Xia Yan finally came to the conclusion that his set of foam soft fists can still work even against masters. And the problems highlighted in this battle also gave Xia Yan a lot of inspiration for improvement. Let's go with Foam Soft Fist 2.0. It is even possible to consider not being limited to foam and water, and integrating the other 4 escape techniques into his ninjutsu. However, apart from the Earth Escape, the destructive power of the other 3 escapes, fire, thunder, and wind, is too strong. It is very likely that you will hurt yourself before hitting the enemy. It can only be done by training your body to the limit like the Kimogaku ninja. If Xia Yan doesn't want to copy and paste, he may have to spend a lot of effort. In addition, Xia Yan also paid a lot of price in this battle. The price is naturally that many of his moves are known by Kakuza. And this guy is a bounty hunter. God knows whether he will sell his information to make a little money. Information is the life of a ninja, and this is no exception for Xia Yan. However, Xia Yan's biggest advantage is that with the help of the three little ones, his progress and ninjutsu development speed are quite fast. As long as the speed of ninjutsu development is fast enough, no one can target him. If someone uses the information given by Kakuza to deal with him in the future, he will definitely teach the other party an unforgettable lesson. Just when Xia Yan was about to study the earth resentment tentacles on Kakuza's arms that seemed to have lost their activity, the door of the room suddenly opened. As soon as Summon saw Xia Yan after walking in, she opened her eyes wide and said, "Xia Yan, what are you doing in my room?" Xia Yan opened his mouth, but was speechless. It was true that he was forced to give up this room to Summon, but shouldn't it be limited to sleeping time? Why can Summon be so calm, as if this room has always been hers, and he is just a thief who broke into a girl's boudoir? Seeing Summon's righteous look, Xia Yan felt a little guilty for some reason. Did he accidentally lend the right to use this room to Summon for the whole day? Unsure, he tried to test it out, then I'll leave. PFFT, I'm just kidding. Summon looked amused by Xia Yan's words, patted Xia Yan's shoulder and laughed. Why are you so easily amused? Xia Yan, who felt pain in his shoulder, quickly stepped back a few steps away from this super strong woman, complaining in his heart that this joke was not funny at all. Although he just made a similar joke with Kakashi, it seems that double standards are also human nature. Summon-sama, do you have something to talk to me about? Xia Yan said straight to the point with a straight face. He was also preparing to have a deep understanding with Kakuza's right hand, and now he didn't have time to care about Summon. However, although Summon seemed to have something to do, it seemed that it was difficult to speak for a while, so she beat around the bush and talked about a question that she was more interested in. She held up her eyeglasses and said, Xia Yan, by the way, how did you come up with the idea of inventing such a pair of glasses? Although this is quite interesting, and it just happens to solve my problem. But why do I feel that the effect of the game will be better if the image is formed by projection? Isn't it interesting to let everyone see it directly? That's because I haven't added the snake lady, the fox girl, the female ghost, and the 8-foot lady into the game. Otherwise, it would be a large-scale social death scene if the image was formed by projection. Xia Yan complained in his heart, but still patiently explained. Actually, as you said, Summon-sama, this game also has a normal projection version, and it is much better than the AR version in terms of realism. However, compared to the one-to-one projection, this kind of AR glasses only needs to generate a miniature image on the lens to achieve a similar effect, and the chakra requirement is much lower than the former. This is the biggest advantage of this AR glasses. After all, not everyone has such a huge chakra like you, Summon-sama, and they won't get tired after playing for a whole day. In order to let ordinary people experience the joy that you just experienced, Summon-sama, I chose to develop this kind of glasses. And not only this pair of glasses, but also that game hall, as well as these capsule houses and scroll food, etc. I also plan to popularize them to the entire ninja world. After all, I boasted to teacher Mito that I would create an era where rooms would provide convenience to everyone, like Kushina and Mito before. Summon was also shocked by Xia Yan's idea. It turned out that this guy invented so many strange things, and he actually planned to popularize them to the entire ninja world. Summon couldn't imagine what the ninja world would be like once Xia Yan's magical inventions entered thousands of households. But civilians not only have little chakra, but also little wealth. Even if Xia Yan reduces the cost of these things, they can't afford them, right? If he really wants to realize his vision, I'm afraid the social structure of the entire ninja world will change drastically. Is this really something Xia Yan can do alone? No, that's not right. Summon, who was quick to react, quickly guessed part of Xia Yan's plan. So this is why a guy as powerful as you would stay in the ninja school to teach. Because if you really want to popularize these things in the ninja world, the most important thing is to need a large number of sealing talents, and they have to be people who can understand and agree with your ideas. So it's the simplest and most convenient way to train them directly from the ninja school. Xia Yan was not too surprised that Summon could see through part of his plan. Because this part was simply an open conspiracy, Xia Yan did not hide it, and he couldn't hide it. And although this is only part of his plan to integrate all the resources of the ninja world to become the god of chakra, he also sincerely hopes to bring stability and development to the ninja world within his ability. Xia Yan spread his hands and said, Sama, what you said is indeed my idea, but I don't mean to force students to accept my idea, but I want to give everyone another way to choose. Perhaps many children with talent in this direction are just waiting for an opportunity. It's just like in the medical ninja selection exam of the ninja school 7 years ago, as the invigilator, Sama saw a child who had poor talent in medical ninjutsu, but had good talent in chakra control, so he threw him to the sealing class. Yes, Xia Yan, who had a mediocre background, was able to went to the sealing class after graduation. In fact, there was a reason for this. After hearing Xia Yan's words, Sama also opened her eyes wide and looked Xia Yan up and down, but the confusion in her eyes was still not eliminated. Yes, she did invigilate the medical ninja selection exam at the ninja school 7 years ago. But no matter how hard she thought about it, she couldn't remember that she had done such a thing. After all, such a thing was too insignificant for her, a princess of the Senju clan, and she might have forgotten it completely when she woke up the next day. Could it be that this genius of sealing technique who could invent so many magical creations, the close disciple of Grandma Mito, was really created by her on a whim? And the glasses he invented just happened to relieve her fear of blood. This made Sama sigh at the wonder of fate, and began to understand what Xia Yan meant. Perhaps in the ninja school, there are many talents like Xia Yan who cannot stand out because of the teaching content. It is impossible for all of them to have Xia Yan's luck and meet a noble person like herself. So Xia Yan's behavior undoubtedly gave these people a chance to change their fate, just like she threw Xia Yan into the sealing class, but Sama still couldn't be sure. Because she was afraid that if she pretended to remember it, or even asked for a favor, Xia Yan would tell her that he was just joking and making up stories just now. A big villain like Xia Yan who could invent the sheep transforming technique would definitely do such a thing. However, Sama also understood that no matter whether Xia Yan made it up or not, the logic was correct after all. I understand. So Sama suddenly said, and then turned and left. Wait, Sama, don't you have something to ask me? Xia Yan said hurriedly. He hated this kind of guy who only spoke halfway. Sama didn't look back, but just walked while waving her hand in a bored manner and said, "It's okay now." Sama, who didn't want to return to Konoha and was reluctant to leave the game hall, originally planned to make a final effort to persuade Xia Yan not to return to Konoha, to fight with her, and to use the game hall to make a career in the ninja world. However, she now knew that this game hall was just an insignificant part of Xia Yan's plan, and it was impossible to tie him here. Moreover, in order to realize his vision, he must return to Konoha to continue to cultivate those seal seedlings. So her proposal would never succeed from the beginning. Sama, who already knew this, naturally didn't bother to entangle. But this made Xia Yan behind her feel itchy. So what did Sama want to talk to me about? And what did she finally understand? Xia Yan, who didn't sleep well the night before, didn't know what Sama understood until the next day. Because after breakfast, Sama said she was going out to catch monsters, but she didn't come back until noon. And when Xia Yan, who was frantically catching up on her homework, wrote the last page of her homework book, she found Sama's flamboyant message. Ha ha ha, didn't expect it. I will return to the village after I become a great onmyoji, so don't come to see me again, goodbye. P.S. Please help me send Xia Yan back. P.S. 2. I took a little bit of the scroll food in the refrigerator, and I will definitely return it to you later. After reading Sama's message, Xia Yan opened the refrigerator expressionlessly, and found that it was empty as he expected. Chapter 232 Mission ended. Go, seal the ball. When Xia Yan and the others saw Sama's message, Sama actually didn't walk far. She was still leisurely walking around the capsule house and conquering monsters. Of course, since the seal balls in Onmyoji Go are limited, her first choice for conquering monsters is still the green caterpillar with infinite potential. After conquering a young green caterpillar, Sama tilted her head to estimate the time, and then a smile of success appeared on her face. According to the speed at which Xia Yan writes homework, they should have seen my message now. Ha ha, it's a pity that I can't see what expression Xia Yan will have. Serves him right. This kid is still too naive. He actually thought that after what happened with Kakuza, I would go back with him obediently. Wishful thinking. Sama continued to stride forward with a smug look on her face. After sorting out and analyzing what happened in the past few days, how could she not know what Xia Yan was planning? This guy didn't give up the mission as he said, but knew from the beginning that he couldn't go back by normal means, so he took a roundabout route and played the mobile game hall card. He even said before that he was promoting the game console. But it turns out that men's mouths are lies. But to be honest, Xia Yan's plan is really terrible. Because if there is no variable like Kakaza, then she is really likely to be like a fat sheep, bewitched by the fresh green grass hanging in front of the game hall, and driven by Xia Yan, the abominable shepherd boy, and return to Konoha without knowing anything, and then become the mutton on her grandmother's chopping board. Thinking of this, Tsunade couldn't help but show a look of fear on her face. In addition to the reason that she didn't want to return to Konoha, this sad place, for that time being, more importantly, she already knew that Kakaza took the IOU she wrote to the Senju clan to collect a debt, and she didn't dare to imagine what she would face after returning. You know, although Grandma has always been a gentle and decent first-generation Okage wife in the eyes of the world, Tsunade, as her granddaughter, knows that Grandma still has the blood of the Uzumaki clan in her body, although she only saw it a few times when she was a child. The scene of Grandma's blood-red long hair flying when she was angry, divided into 9 strands and waving in the air, has always been Tsunade's biggest childhood shadow. Even in that scene, you can see her grandfather, Hashirama, the god of the ninja world, who can only shrink aside and dare not say a word. Tsunade, who felt more and more numb in her scalp, shook her head and threw the terrible picture out of her mind. So no matter how you think about it, she can't go back to Konoha now. The only thing that makes Tsunade feel very regretful is that if she leaves like this, she may have to wait until the game hall is popularized outside Konoha village before she has the opportunity to play it again. Obviously, she hasn't played the new DLC character of Shinobi King 97 yet. But Tsunade also knows in her heart that if she doesn't run away decisively, she may get deeper and deeper and eventually unable to extricate herself. Even if she got tired of playing the DLC characters, Xia Yan could still come up with something more novel and interesting to tie her to her side. If she wasn't careful, she might have already stood in front of the Senju mansion when she woke up. That's why Tsunade was so decisive and left without saying goodbye. Fortunately, although she couldn't play that game console for the time being, she still had AR glasses, which were also made by Xia Yan. If she couldn't beat Shinobi Emperor 97, wouldn't it be better to play on Myoji Go? Not to mention that this pair of glasses can also help her relieve her hemophobia, which just solved a major hidden danger for her. Now even if the bastard Kakaza comes to find her again, she is not a match for him without the fatal weakness of hemophobia, but at least she can run away. Moreover, Tsunade, who originally only dared to wander in the land of fire because of her hemophobia, found that the world became wider after having this pair of glasses, and it seemed that there was no place in the whole ninja world that she couldn't go. Just then, Xia Yan said that the game on Myoji Go simulates the ecology of the real world, and different monsters will live in different environments. Therefore, if you want to complete the illustrated handbook, you must travel all over the ninja world. So, Tsunade from Konoha village set out on a journey with her partner Pikachu and 30 green caterpillars with the goal of becoming a great onmyoji. Who knew that Tsunade, who had just set a grand goal, had not taken a few steps when a prompt box popped up in her vision, showing a message that made her completely confused. Network connection has been interrupted. In the afternoon, outside the capsule house, Xia Yan was reaching out and pressing a huge red button next to the door, and the house turned back into a small capsule with a bang. Xia, who was standing next to him, was now showing a sad face, obviously still sad about being abandoned by Tsunade. But even so, when Xia Yan announced that he was ready to leave for Konoha, she couldn't help but worry. Teacher, do we really not have to worry about Tsunade-sama? Is she really okay alone? If I don't remind her, she often gambles so much that she even forgets to eat and sleep. Xia Yan looked at Xia, who was only 6 years old, worrying about the food, clothing, housing and transportation of Tsunade, who was over 30, like an old mother, and wanted to complain. Who is your master? Kakashi on the side hesitated for a moment, and also said, Teacher, there is still some time before the end of the holiday. In fact, we can still try to complete the task again. If it's you, teacher, there should be a way to find Tsunade-sama again. The reason why Kakashi was so concerned was naturally because this was his first serious mission outside the village, and according to the teacher, it was an S-level mission. Of course, he didn't want to give up so easily. Seeing the two looking at him expectantly, Xia Yan, who originally wanted to be a Riddler, had to explain in advance. Don't worry, Lady Tsunade's message was just a joke to us. In fact, she will still go back to Konoha with us. Seeing that the two were suspicious and thought he was fooling them, Xia Yan smiled helplessly, then turned his head to the woods not far away and said, Lady Tsunade, I said this kind of joke is not funny at all. You should be able to come out now. Kakashi and Xia were startled when they heard it, and quickly turned their heads to look in the direction of the woods, and as a result, they really saw the figure of Lady Tsunade. Samad, with a dark face, walked out of the woods, and then glared at Xia Yan with an angry face. She didn't even take the opportunity given by Xia Yan, but gritted her teeth and said, "The network connection has been interrupted. I thought it meant something, but I didn't expect that. Xia Yan, you actually tampered with these glasses. Once you leave a certain range of the game hall, you can't play that game. It seems that you have planned everything from the beginning. Aren't you tired of this?" "Not tired, seeing you, Samad, so angry but unable to do anything to me is worth the price of the ticket." Xia Yan complained in his heart, but on the surface he raised his hands and said with a wry smile, "Lady Samad, you misunderstood. How could I do such a thing? It's not that I did anything in these AR glasses, but because of performance limitations, these glasses are designed this way. Lady Samad, have you ever thought about why the game machines in the arcade are so bulky, while the glasses you wear are so light?" Seeing that the originally angry Samad showed a thoughtful expression, Xia Yan smiled slightly and explained directly. "This is because the performance of these AR glasses is not enough to run games like on Myoji Go. So from the beginning, these glasses were not a complete game console, but only a tool for inputting commands and displaying images. The most important computing and processing work of the game still has to be done by the machines in the arcade, and then they interact with your glasses through chakra waves. In this way, you can enjoy the experience brought by those huge game consoles with just a pair of such light and mediocre glasses." In fact, Xia Yan's design is similar to the concept of cloud computers and cloud games in his previous life. It allows users to use the server's high-performance computing resources to work or play games through a low-performance client. In addition, due to the limitation of network speed in Xia Yan's previous life, this technology was still not satisfactory for playing games. On the contrary, in the ninja world, thanks to the advantage of chakra in information transmission, this technology has just appeared and the effect is surprisingly good. In addition to reducing costs and facilitating popularization, the more important thing is that Xia Yan can control all computing resources in his own hands to avoid leaks and prepare for future plans. Of course, the disadvantage is the same as the previous communication bracelet, which requires great efforts to make miracles, and the transmission distance is quite limited, so Samad lost the network connection not far away from the game hall. It may take Xia Yan to create the Dark Tower before this thing can be truly popularized. And at this time, Xia Yan also understood why the symbol of Samad on the small mat just now is in and out of the game hall like Fantang. It turned out that this guy was actually testing the Wi-Fi range. After listening to Xia Yan's words, Samad's face finally eased a lot. After all, although she didn't quite understand the principle, she could tell that Xia Yan was not making it up. And she soon realized that the biggest benefit of doing so is that it could greatly reduce the cost of the glasses. Sure enough, Xia Yan said that he intended to popularize these things, and he was not just talking, but was moving towards his goal step by step, so, she did blame Xia Yan a little bit. It wasn't that Xia Yan had tampered with the glasses, but from the beginning, the glasses were inseparable from the game hall. But in this way, her dream of becoming a great onmyoji might not be realized so quickly, but when Samad heard that Xia Yan was still practicing his dream even when making small game consoles, she felt that her dream of becoming a great onmyoji was a little embarrassing, and she suddenly felt bored. Then after a tense silence, Samad suddenly said, "Let's go." Then she strode forward. Seeing that Xia Yan and the others didn't catch up, Samad turned back and urged impatiently, "What are you still standing there for? Hurry up and catch up." "Wait, Lady Samad, where are we going now?" Xia Yan, Samad's little follower, was the first to follow, and then looked up and asked Samad. "Xia Yan, what nonsense are you talking about?" Samad let out a long breath, and then replied in a very reluctant tone, "Of course we're going back to Konoha. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novel, as there you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels." Chapter 233 Return to the village. A few days later in the afternoon, in front of the gate of Konohagaku village. Although Xia Yan had stopped the business of the mobile game hall and the journey was smooth, it took them several days to finally return to Konoha because Samad, a demanding woman, often asked him to open the game hall to let her play games and catch monsters. Xia Yan even guessed that in addition to her addiction to games, Samad probably also wanted to delay her return to the village. But no matter how she delayed, the gate of Konoha finally appeared in front of them. Whether it was Xia Yan, who had not been away from home for half a year, or Kakashi and Shijin, who had left Konoha for such a long time for the first time, when they saw the towering walls of the village, they still felt a sense of relief called home. Even Tsunade, who was originally very reluctant, relaxed a lot when she saw the familiar scene in the village and the Okajanian on the cliff in the distance through the gate of Konoha. Then she glanced at Xia Yan, who was smiling beside her, and felt mixed emotions for a while. She thought that after leaving Konoha, she would not come back for a long time, but she did not expect that under this guy's series of calculations, she would eventually return here. I really don't know whether I should hate him or thank him. This time, Grandma really accepted a special disciple. If I could always have the company of this guy's strange inventions and games, maybe staying in Konoha would not be completely unacceptable. After secretly rolling her eyes at Xia Yan, Tsunade's expression began to become depressed again. Because through Xia Yan, she thought of Grandma Mito again. When she thought about seeing Grandma with a full angle value, she felt her legs and feet weak, and she really wanted to turn around and leave. But now that she has come here, it is probably too late to run now. With the idea of dying early and being reborn early, Tsunade began to stride forward, and from time to time she turned back to watch Xia Yan and the others. Okay, let's go, don't let Grandma and Kushina wait too long. Has Tsunade been possessed by someone? Xia Yan, Kakashi and Shijin all looked at each other, and then followed with a puzzled look on their faces. So Xia Yan and his group quickly entered Konoha. In stark contrast to the situation when not many people recognized her identity when she traveled around the Land of Fire before, Tsunade was recognized by many villagers as soon as she entered the gate of Konoha, and was soon surrounded. Many villagers even began to run to the village, spontaneously informing everyone of the news of Tsunade's return. The enthusiastic performance of the villagers made Xia Yan feel like a big star being surrounded by fans at the airport. That's right, the granddaughter of the god of ninja, the disciple of the strongest Hokage, a little red among the three ninjas, and a white angel who saves the dying and the wounded. These titles undoubtedly make Tsunade very popular in the village. Coupled with her youthful and beautiful appearance, it is not surprising that she is so popular. And Tsunade seemed to be no stranger to this scene, and greeted the villagers around her very naturally. Xia Yan and his group followed behind Tsunade like followers, and marveled at Tsunade, a gambler. Filter. But after listening for a while, Xia Yan and the others' expressions gradually became strange again. Because in addition to greetings, a topic would appear from time to time in their villagers' conversations. Tsunade-sama, you are finally back, shouldn't you settle the accounts you kept in our store a few years ago? Tsunade-sama, I miss you so much. Konoha has really lost a lot of its luster without you. Actually, it's like this. I'm a little tight on money recently, so the money I borrowed from you before, Tsunade-sama, pay me back. The words asking Tsunade to pay back the money kept appearing at a frequency of one in every few people, making Xia Yan start to sweat. So, Tsunade, how much debt do you owe in the village? Is this the real reason why you dare not return to the village? But Xia Yan still felt a little strange. Although Tsunade came back after such a long time, people would not ask her for debt as soon as they saw her, right? What's even more strange is that Xia Yan also found that some villagers who are strangers to him actually looked at him with contempt and a little envy and jealousy, which made him a little confused. In fact, even Tsunade in front of Xia Yan was a little confused at this time. She didn't know why so many people suddenly came to her to collect debts. To be honest, if it was in other places, she would have run away in an instant. But this is Konoha, she can run away even if she runs away. At this time, Tsunade deeply understood why rabbits don't eat grass near their nests. Fortunately, during the days when Xia Yan's mobile game hall was open, she made a lot of money through the Ninja King 97. So now she can barely take out the money and avoid the risk of making a fool of herself. But watching the hard-earned money disappear like coins, Tsunade felt as if her heart was bleeding. She originally planned to use this money to make up for the losses of the Senju clan and let her grandmother calm down. But now it seems that she may still have to face the angry Mito grandmother. After finally getting rid of the debt collectors, Tsunade and her group finally arrived at the gate of the Senju clan's ancestral home. It can be said that after arriving here, the mission to find Tsunade this time is truly declared completed. When passing by the Kato clan's territory on the way, Tsunade asked Shijin to go back first. And Kakashi, who followed all the way here, also said, Teacher Xia Yan, Master Tsunade, since the mission is completed, I will take my leave first. Tsunade waved her hand very casually and said, Thank you for your hard work, Kakashi, go home and rest early, it's not easy for you to come here. Who do you think did this? Xia Yan complained in his heart, then thought about it, took out a scroll and threw it to Kakashi. "Teacher, what is this?" Kakashi took the scroll, but was a little confused. The scroll contains a ninja sword similar to Obito's and some ninjutsu shuriken, but they are improved versions. Xia Yan explained, although it is a good thing for you to try more directions, it is a pity to abandon the Hatake-style swordsmanship, so you still have to maintain a certain amount of practice. Hearing this, Kakashi immediately held the scroll tightly. In addition to the fact that he had been a little envious of Obito's cool ninja swords, more importantly, this ninja sword should come with a battlesuit, which could let him get rid of the eye-catching green tights. You know, whenever he put on the green tights to practice radio gymnastics, Akaji's fiery gaze would always make him feel uncomfortable, but he still resisted the urge to accept it directly, and moved his gaze from the scroll to Xia Yan with difficulty, and said, "But teacher, didn't you say before that Obito and the others got this ninja sword as a reward after a semester of hard work, so it would be unfair to give it to me directly?" Xia Yan smiled helplessly and said, "I did say that, but Kakashi, your performance in this mission was actually remarkable. Although you said you don't want any reward, the teacher can't take advantage of you. This sword will be your reward for this mission. You are good at swordsmanship, so you can help me test the performance of this ninja sword, and which shuriken ninjutsu are more suitable for use with the ninja sword." Whether it was the reward for the mission or the excuse of helping with the testing, Kakashi knew very well that these were just excuses for teacher Xia Yan to give him the ninja sword, and he couldn't help feeling a little warm in his heart. After hesitating for a while, Kakashi finally put the scroll into his arms, and then said seriously, "Thank you, teacher. I will definitely test this ninja sword carefully and give you a detailed report. Don't worry, just like Summit-sama said, you should have a good rest these days." Xia Yan waved his hand and smiled. Then Kakashi said goodbye to the two again and left the clan of the Senju clan. However, he did not walk towards home, but walked quickly into a remote alley, and then he couldn't wait to take out the scroll given by Xia Yan and open it to check. Sure enough, even Kakashi, who was praised as a genius, was only a 5 or 6-year-old child after all, and he had no resistance to a big toy like the ninja Ichiban sword. However, after a bang, what appeared in front of Kakashi was not the kind of ninja sword he remembered, but a weapon that looked a little strange. To be honest, this is not so much a ninja sword as a star-shaped guitar that looks like a ninja sword. Don't worry, the shape of this guitar should be just a decoration. Kakashi comforted himself, and then subconsciously reached out and plucked the guitar. No, it was the strings on the ninja sword. Then a crisp string sound echoed in the alley. It actually works. Kakashi immediately fell into deep thought. Could it be that teacher Xia Yan gave the wrong scroll? Chapter 234 Reunion. Although Kakashi had left for quite a while, Summit and Xia Yan were still standing in front of the Senju mansion, playing the game of staring at each other. Xia Yan was thinking, why hasn't Summit gone in yet? And Summit was thinking, why hasn't Xia Yan gotten out of here yet? In the end, it was Summit who couldn't help herself and forced out a smile and said, "Well, Xia Yan, just send him here. You've worked hard this time, so you should go home and have a rest. As for the mission and Kakuza's matter, I will report to Grandma for you." Knowing that she would face Mito's full anger value later, Summit naturally would not give Xia Yan the opportunity to watch the show, so she wanted to let him go home first. However, Xia Yan, who was also very clear about this, had already prepared a melon seed bench to watch the drama of Mito teacher beating up Summit, the prodigal daughter. How could he leave at this juncture? So he shook his head like a wave drum, and said with a righteous face, "How can this be? I promised teacher Mito that I would personally send you, Lady Summit, to her to complete the task. How can I fail at this last step? That sounds nice, but you don't think I will run away after I get here?" Summit knew from Xia Yan's look that soft tactics might not work, so she directly used hard tactics, raised her two embroidered eyebrows and pretended to be angry. "Go away, Xia Yan, why are you so ignorant? Grandma, Kushina and I girls haven't seen each other for so long, we must have a lot of personal things to say. Why are you, a boy, joining in the fun?" "Girls." Xia Yan's expression became a little strange when he heard it, and he complained subconsciously, "Lady Summit, why do I feel that Kushina is the only one among you who can be called a girl?" But as soon as these words came out, Xia Yan felt something was wrong. "Xia Yan, I didn't hear what you said just now, can you say it again?" Summit said with a smile, and her smile was even sweeter than usual. "But first, we have to ignore her fists that were clenched and cracked, damn it." Seeing Summit walking towards him with a smile on her face, Xia Yan didn't know that he had fallen into a trap. Summit actually used his age as bait to deliberately cause him to complain, and then he could naturally expel him physically. Could it be that she has been so familiar with him during this period of time, and often teased each other, just to prepare for this moment? But why is she so skilled? Has she used similar moves on Jiraiya before? Seeing Summit and her two small fists containing the power of the ancient times getting closer and closer, even Xia Yan, who had fought Kakaza without losing, couldn't help but feel a little numb. Although he had white hair, he didn't want to be like Kakashi in the future, who had to lie in the hospital every time he finished a mission. Fortunately, when Summit was designing this trap, Xia Yan was not idle either, and was also carrying out his own plan. And at this moment, it was just the time when his plan worked. Sister Summit, you are finally back. Kushina's surprised voice suddenly sounded behind Summit, interrupting her pace. As the residents of Mito, the master of sealing techniques, this Senju mansion naturally has a large number of barrier arrays to isolate the inside and outside. So it was not until Kushina opened the door and exclaimed that Summit realized her arrival. How did Kushina know that we were back so quickly? Summit subconsciously glanced at Xia Yan's smiling expression, but unfortunately she got nothing, just felt that the other party's smile was a bit annoying. She was afraid that it would be difficult to guess dozens of times that Xia Yan used something similar to the glasses on her nose, a communication bracelet, to secretly send messages, so that Kushina could appear in front of the door at this moment. Hearing the footsteps approaching rapidly, Summit also knew that now was not the time to persuade Xia Yan to retreat, so she could only glare at him fiercely, then adjust her mood, turn around and prepare to welcome Kushina's hug. It's been a long time since I last saw Kushina, and she should have grown up a lot now. Summit thought so in her heart, but she never expected that when she turned around, she would jump into her arms with a little red-haired girl. Her. Who are you? Looking at the chubby red-haired little girl in her arms, Summit was a little confused for a while. Although it looks like Kushina, but why do I always feel that Kushina seems to have not grown up but shrunk? However, before Summit could sort out the clues, something happened that made her even more confused. 4 more red-haired little girls who looked exactly like the one in her arms ran out from the gate, a moment later, in the courtyard of the Senju mansion. Under the towering pomegranate tree, 5 little Kushinas were happily chasing and playing, laughing and talking. Summit was sitting at the stone table, watching them play with interest, while listening to Kushina's real body, who arrived later, excitedly explaining the origin of these little guys, and recounting her experiences after she and Summit separated. Being an assistant teacher, opening a tavern, learning this strange baby clone technique, and even being kidnapped once, I didn't expect that when I was away. Kushina, you actually went through so many things. After listening to Kushina's general description, Summit looked at the other party, who was almost as tall as herself, and couldn't help but sighed. In her tone, there was both satisfaction for Kushina's growth and apology for not being by her side when Kushina needed her. Sure enough, even when she hesitated because of the past, others would not stop their steps. Even Summit, who has always been good at keeping her youthful appearance, deeply felt the reality of time flying at this moment, but Summit didn't feel sad for too long, because she soon noticed an interesting fact. By the way, Kushina, the interesting things you've experienced seem to be related to Xia Yan. It seems that you two have a pretty good relationship. Summit, who was full of gossip, soon couldn't help but joked. However, Kushina didn't blush as she imagined. Instead, her expression became a little strange, and even her excitement subsided a lot. Suddenly, she lowered her head and kept silent. Did she say something wrong? Summit was confused again. In fact, not to mention Summit, even Xia Yan next to her had similar doubts at this time. Because from the time Kushina's real body appeared until now, except for a cold greeting to herself at the beginning, she completely ignored her. Even if their eyes met sometimes, she would immediately look away. And those little Kushina who usually stick to her are now hiding far away, and from time to time they secretly make faces at her. Obviously, something must have gone wrong. If we consider the behavior of the villagers before, Xia Yan can imagine that something must have happened in Konoha that was related to him when he was away. However, Xia Yan had to put this matter aside for the time being, because at this moment, a slightly teasing female voice came from the gate of the courtyard. The little princess of our Senju clan, has she finally come back? Then, a red-haired woman wearing an elegant white jinsam walked in. It was Mito. Summit, who was still studying with great interest whether there was something fishy between Kushina and Xia Yan, froze in an instant. Although it seemed that her grandmother was not angry from her slightly smiling voice, Summit, who was familiar with her grandmother, knew that she would only say such sarcastic words when she was really angry. Although the anger value has not yet reached the point where it is full, it is also quite bad. If she said something wrong, the grandmother would probably be filled with anger and transformed into the original version of the blood red pepper. Summit repeatedly reminded herself to be careful with her words and actions, and then she turned her body like a rusty machine and looked at Mito. However, when she saw the familiar appearance of Mito's grandmother, all the emotions that had been suppressed in her heart suddenly burst out like a broken dam. The joy of reunion after a long separation, the regret and apology caused by thinking of Nawaki, the grievance of being calculated by Kakuzu, the reluctance because the grandmother might not live long, all kinds of strong and complex emotions pushed the fear of being scolded to the edge. So before Summit could even sort out her emotions, her body had already stood up involuntarily, ran over and threw herself tightly into Mito's arms. And Mito was naturally a little surprised by Summit's performance. After vaguely seeing the tears flashing in the corners of Summit's eyes, Mito swallowed all the strange words he had prepared before, just gently stroked Summit's hair, and said gently, "It's good to be back." Xia Yan, who was standing aside, was also a little moved by the scene of the reunion of the grandparents and grandchildren. If it weren't for me, maybe Summit would have to wait until Mito sealed the nine tails into Kushina's body and passed away before she would make up her mind to come back. It seems that the change caused by the flapping of wings by this little butterfly is not bad, and the scene of Mito teacher and Summit, two rare beauties, kissing each other under the pomegranate tree, also make Xia Yan, who has watched countless movies, stare at it. It took him a long time to react, and he quickly called the camera technique program, wanting to record this touching and beautiful picture. Damn, Kushina, why are you joining in the fun? It turned out that just before Xia Yan was about to take a photo, Kushina actually walked up and talked to the two. Now, the perfect composition of the two beauties has become a composition of the two beauties and Kushina. Oh, forget it, I'll just Photoshop her out later. Xia Yan muttered in his heart, and then a blue light flashed in his eyes, recording forever this photo of the three women in front of him, which may have the greatest impact on him. Chapter 235 Scandal. Unfortunately, this beautiful and tender scene could not last forever like a photo. In fact, not long after, Summit's cry of pain echoed in the courtyard, breaking the beautiful atmosphere. I don't know what she said wrong, but suddenly Mito, who was still smiling, grabbed her ear. Sure enough, after the joy of reunion faded, Summit, the prodigal daughter who ran away from home, indulged in gambling, and owed a large gambling debt to the Senju clan, still made Mito angry again. Even Summit, one of the three ninjas, could not resist at this time, and did not dare to resist. She could only beg for mercy pitifully. It hurts, Grandma, I know I was wrong, I won't dare to do it again. I'm so big now, don't be like this. There are outsiders here. Mito was unmoved by Summit's various pleas for mercy, until Summit mentioned that there were outsiders, her expression became weird. Mito first looked at Summit and Xia Yan separately, then sighed and said, "Stranger? Not to mention that Xia Yan is my disciple, just based on the relationship between the two of you, you are not considered an outsider, right? What is the relationship between me and Xia Yan?" Summit, who was still being pulled by the ear, forgot the pain for a moment and asked curiously. Xia Yan, who was frantically recording Summit's black history not far away, also raised his eyebrows when he heard it, not knowing why. As for Mito, who had just finished speaking, she carefully looked at the expressions of the two people, and finally breathed a sigh of relief when she saw that they were both confused. With a clear mind, her expression became much calmer, and she even joked, "You don't have to hide it. I didn't expect that this trip that I asked Xia Yan to go out to find you would actually lead to a good relationship between you." As soon as the voice fell, Summit fell into a state of shutdown, and Xia Yan's expression was rarely tense. He subconsciously glanced at Kushina, but Kushina just glared at him with resentful eyes, and then turned her head away from him. As expected, Mito's words provided Xia Yan with the last piece of the puzzle, and he suddenly understood why the villagers and Kushina were so strange to him. It turned out that they thought that he and Summit were in love. In this way, the villagers' envy, jealousy and hatred and Kushina's strange behavior all had a reasonable explanation. But this also raised a new question, that is, why do they think so? Just at this time, Summit was speechless for a long time, and her overloaded brain finally processed what Mito said. She pointed at Xia Yan and herself with trembling fingers, and said in disbelief, "Grandma, you said that Xia Yan and I. How is this possible? Who spread this? I want to settle accounts with him." She became more and more angry and began to roll up her sleeves, as if she was really waiting for Mito to say a name and then she would immediately run to settle accounts with the other party. Mito could only shake her head and smile helplessly. I don't even know who spread the rumor, but because of your identity, Tsunade, this rumor is well known in Konoha. More importantly, even the fact that you didn't pay back your debts has spread all over Konoha. As she spoke, her anger suddenly increased a lot, and the hand that was holding Tsunade's ear tightened again. This time, Tsunade, you have made our Senju clan proud. So Tsunade's screams of pain rang out again. After finally escaping from the clutches of the grandmother, Tsunade covered her red ears and stepped back a few steps, looking at the other party with a vigilant face. After seeing that the grandmother didn't move, Tsunade had time to think about what she had just said. At this time, she also reacted. When they returned to Konoha just now, there were so many people looking for her to collect debts. It seemed that it was also because of this rumor. Well, this part is indeed not a rumor, and there are very few people or forces that can make the grandmother unable to trace the source. After a little elimination, Tsunade locked on a suspect. No, it's Kakuzu. Knowing that she was in debt, and being able to borrow the powerful intelligence network of the gold exchange, and having conflicts with her recently, the only one who knew about her debt was Kakuzu. As for her scandal with Xia Yan, Tsunade also had some guesses in her mind. It was probably because of her abnormal behavior when she thought Xia Yan was dead that Kakuzu noticed something. In the subsequent tests, the correct answer of hemophobia was also eliminated because she wore those AR glasses, so Kakuzu probably attributed her previous strange behavior to the extraordinary relationship between the two. The only question is, why did Kakuzu do this? A famous bounty hunter, can't he afford to lose so much that he actually smeared them behind their backs after losing? Isn't this too cheap? At this time, Xia Yan, who also sorted out the context of the incident, showed an expression of not knowing whether to laugh or cry. Compared with Tsunade's doubts, Xia Yan, who knew Kakuzu's obsession with money, felt that the reason behind this matter might not be too complicated. Perhaps the source of the matter was that Kakuzu went to the gold exchange office and exchanged the information about him and Tsunade for some money. Because in the ninja world, exchanging information for money is a common thing. It goes without saying that a top figure like Tsunade is naturally worth a lot of money. Even Xia Yan, as a disciple of Mito, has actually begun to receive a lot of attention. So the latest information about the two may really be worth a lot of money. After figuring this out, Xia Yan was not angry, but was slightly relieved. Because Kakuzu exposed the matter of Tsunade's debt, it meant that he temporarily gave up the idea of targeting the two, and would use this information to exchange for money to make up for the previous losses. This is undoubtedly very good news for Xia Yan. After all, being stared at by a kid-level strongman all the time, even he would have a headache. The only thing that made Xia Yan helpless was that according to this situation, the information about the moves he used in the previous battle with Kakuzu might have been sold out by Kakuzu. Although he had expected it before, he also made countermeasures to develop more new techniques. But Xia Yan also knew that after becoming a disciple of Mr. Mito, all his information would inevitably be carefully analyzed with a magnifying glass. In fact, the biggest gap between Special Jonin and Jonin lies here. Even the best ninjas, after carrying out so many missions, can't have many secrets except one or two unique skills. Compared with Special Jonin, the value of real Jonin lies in that they are comprehensive and can always kill the enemy and successfully complete the mission even if the information is leaked. It's like the reputation of the copy ninja Kakashi resounding throughout the ninja world in the future. The slightly more informed ninjas know Kakashi's fighting style, but they're still helpless against him. Even Kai, who basically only knows physical skills, actually masters the art of summoning spirits and the method of breaking illusions. There is no fatal weakness, and other methods targeting his heaven-defying physical skills will always become useless. So instead of developing more new skills, Xia Yan feels that what he should do is to integrate everything he has learned to form a combat system that can cope with various situations. In fact, Xia Yan had done the same thing before, but this incident gave him a clearer goal. While Xia Yan was reflecting on himself, Tsunade was still furious. This might be because Mito then told the details of those rumors in great detail. For example, it was said that Tsunade was committed to Xia Yan, the owner of the game hall, because she owed too much money. Or there were comments about her old cow eating young grass. Some people even swore that Tsunade slept in Xia Yan's room every day. These are all nonsense. Kakuzu, don't let me see you again. Tsunade was so angry that she gritted her teeth and said indignantly. Well, it is true that she sleeps in Xia Yan's room every day. And those explicit rumors were probably processed continuously during the process of dissemination, and they were not related to Kakuzu. Seeing that Tsunade could only repeat Kakuzu. and couldn't explain the situation clearly, Xia Yan had to sigh and step forward to tell them about the bad fate between Kakuza and them. I didn't expect that your trip would be so thrilling, Xia Yan, and you would actually face off against the guy Kakuza. After Xia Yan finished replaying the wonderful moment while narrating with the projection technique, Mito said with emotion. As she spoke, her right hand started to itch again. Because if it weren't for Tsanad, this fat sheep, she wouldn't have attracted the covetousness of bounty hunters like Kakuza. And if it weren't for Xia Yan detonating Kakuza's bomb in advance, it's unknown whether Tsanad, the prodigal girl, would have lost all the family property of the Senju clan. It's a pity that Tsanad seemed to have anticipated it, and had already hidden far away, and was ready to run away at any time. Seeing this, Mito had to give up and could only glare at her fiercely. Then Mito stroked his cheek and smiled. Speaking of which, Xia Yan's idea of a mobile arcade is quite interesting. I would like to see it if I have a chance. And what about AR glasses? I didn't expect that they could solve Tsanad's problem. Xia Yan, you always surprise me. To be honest, at first I thought that Tsanad wore glasses because she stayed up late playing cards every day and damaged her eyes. I didn't expect that it was also your invention, Xia Yan. Compared to us traditional sealing ninjas who can only make various ninja tools, perhaps your ideas can bring this rune system to its full potential. For Mito's praise, Xia Yan naturally modestly said that he still had a long way to go. In fact, this is also that case. For Tsanad's condition, his AR glasses are actually only a temporary solution, not a permanent solution, and the effect may get worse and worse over time. So if he really wants to completely revive Tsanad, who naturally shares the same interests with him, Xia Yan may have to find another way to help Tsanad completely solve the problem of hemophobia. At this time, Kashina, who finally confirmed that Tsanad's sister and Xia Yan had no affair, also unconsciously came to Xia Yan's side, talked to Xia Yan a little embarrassedly, and then curiously asked about the details of his mission. Xia Yan saw that Kashina quickly returned to her usual appearance, and he was inexplicably relieved. It was probably because of the 6 months of getting along with her that Kashina had become a part of his daily life. So until she returned to her usual appearance, Xia Yan really felt that he had finally returned to Konoha and completed his mission. Not long after that, Xia Yan took the initiative to say goodbye. After all, the protagonist today is Tsanad, so it is not appropriate for everyone's attention to be always attracted by his inventions. And he also recorded enough black materials on Tsanad, and he was already satisfied, so he was very tactful not to disturb the reunion of the three of them. After declining their attention, Xia Yan left the Senju mansion. But when he walked out of the door, another sound of footsteps came from behind him. Xia Yan looked back and saw that it was Tsanad. Then a scroll was thrown over and Xia Yan caught it. This is the scroll that Grandma asked me to give you. It's encrypted so I can't read it. So what's inside it? Tsanad, who just threw the scroll, asked casually. Xia Yan quickly realized that this was probably the bait that Mito-sensei used to ask him to find Tsanad at the beginning, the scroll about the knowledge of the curse seal. So he said, since Mito-sensei doesn't let you read it, I'm sorry I can't tell you what's inside it, Lady Tsanad. The matter of the curse seal is his secret weapon to deal with Danzo, so naturally the fewer people who know about it, the better. So mysterious, who cares? Tsanad pouted, and then suddenly became a little embarrassed. Lady Tsanad, do you have anything else to do? Xia Yan asked. Tsanad hesitated for a moment, but still gritted her teeth and said, Indeed, there is something. Since I'm back, isn't there something you should return to me? Chapter 236 Curse Scroll. Have I ever taken anything from you, Tsanad-sama? Xia Yan said with a strange look on his face after hearing Tsanad's words. After all, Tsanad had always been the one who took a lot of his things. The big pile of scrolls and food that she had taken before, she still hasn't returned them to him. Tsanad was speechless when she saw that Xia Yan had no recollection at all. She gritted her teeth and had to remind him again. It's that one. Which one is that one? Xia Yan scratched his head. That one is that one. Tsanad said with a little shame, it's that one you used to let the ninja dog find me. At this time, Xia Yan suddenly realized. It turned out that it was not that one, but that one. Hey, I always feel like I remembered the lyrics of a song, but he didn't think about it, just smiled helplessly. Tsanad-sama, wouldn't it be better if you just said it directly? Wasn't it quite heroic when you gave that thing to me? Tsanad rolled her eyes when she heard it. The reason why she was so bold at the beginning was because she thought that she would not see Xia Yan very often in the future, so she flirted with him casually. who knew that she would get along well with him now, and even return to Konoha together. In this way, her behavior at the beginning became a little shameful. Of course, Samad still looked righteous on the surface. "I'm just being cautious." Samad sneered. "Xia Yan, you don't want any strange rumors to spread in the village anymore." In fact, in addition to this reason, the reason why Samad was so concerned was because she had just seen that the little girl Kushina probably had a good impression of Xia Yan. Although Xia Yan was a bit of a black-belly brat, Samad had to admit that this kid was indeed a leader of the younger generation, but she didn't know who was better than Jiraiya's genius disciple. Therefore, she was happy to see the young couple of Kushina and Xia Yan succeed. So in order to avoid complications, she decided to solve this hidden danger as soon as possible. Otherwise, with her unlucky luck, I'm afraid that sooner or later, it would cause a fuss because of that thing. "Okay, stop talking nonsense and bring it here." Samad, who was a little impatient, stretched out the handboard. Then she seemed to suddenly think of something, looked at Xia Yan with a strange look and added, "Don't worry, even if there are some strange marks on it, I will pretend not to see it." Xia Yan's forehead suddenly had a few black lines. In order to prevent Samad from saying anything more fierce and lewd, he quickly took out a storage card. Then, with a bang, the white smoke dissipated, and he had a card in his hand that Samad mentioned. The next moment, Samad nervously snatched the thing away, and after checking it, she said unhappily, "Why do you want to unlock the seal? Can't you just give me the card? Isn't this for you, Samad some app, to check the goods, so that you don't have any questions later?" Xia Yan spread his hands and said. Samad knew that this was Xia Yan's response to her teasing just now, so she could only glare at him fiercely. Then Samad thought for a while and reminded, "Besides this thing, don't tell anyone about me sleeping in your room before. Just pretend it never happened." "I know." Xia Yan nodded helplessly. "That's good. Now you can go away." After eliminating all the troubles, Samad finally put her mind at ease and waved her hand casually. In this situation, Xia Yan always felt that he was being played by a scumbag. But he didn't get tangled up. After saying goodbye to Samad, he went home. When Samad saw Xia Yan leaving helplessly, she couldn't help but smile smugly. However, when she turned around and opened the door to return to the mansion, her expression froze instantly. Because as soon as she opened the door, she saw a stunned Kushina standing in front of the door, and Kushina's dull eyes were staring at the small panties she was still holding in her hand. In an instant, Samad knew that something was wrong. Because whether it was the panties in her hand or the content of her conversation with Xia Yan just now, it seemed easy for people to think wrongly. Unexpectedly, her efforts to avoid such a farce directly led to the occurrence of such a farce. Did God really dislike her? "Kushina, don't get excited first, listen to my explanation." Samad quickly stuffed the panties into her pocket, and then squeezed out a sincere smile. However, her words did not have any positive effect at all. Instead, it was like the sound of a starting gun, which made Kushina wake up instantly. After looking at Samad with heartbroken eyes, she turned around and ran away without saying a word. Indistinctly, you can see a tail like a broken string of pearls flying out as she turned around. "Kushina, wait a minute, I said you should listen to my explanation first." Samad shouted, making the gesture of Erkin reaching out. However, Kushina seemed to have mastered the routine of Kyoto dramas without any teacher. She cried and shook her head while crying. "I don't want to listen, I don't want to listen, I don't want to listen, I don't want to listen." Even Xia Yan, who had just left the Senju mansion not long ago, could vaguely hear the sound coming from behind. "It sounds like Kushina's voice, but I don't know what she is saying so loudly." It seems that Samad's return has also made the little girl very excited. As soon as I left, her true colors were exposed. Xia Yan came to such a conclusion by touching his chin, smiled slightly, and decided not to delve into it too much, leaving time for the three of them. So Xia Yan returned to his home without knowing that fast. As soon as he got home, the first thing he did was to check the condition of the barrier. After confirming that there was no abnormality, he conjured a recliner in the yard and sat on it comfortably in the posture of Ji lying. It's true that it feels the most comfortable to be back home. In fact, as a senior otaku, he thinks the most pleasant activity is to do research alone, which is why he chose to be a programmer in his previous life. After resting for a while, Xia Yan stood up slightly, then took out 3 half-red and half-white seal balls from his arms and threw them forward gently. Bang, bang, bang. A cloud of white smoke exploded, and 3 white-hair ghosts wearing clothes of different colors appeared in the original place with very middle school postures, and said in unison, "Jinyu Special Forces, join us." Xia Yan, who witnessed this scene, twitched his mouth slightly, and finally could only hold his forehead and sigh. Okay, don't worry about playing tricks. Although we have gained a lot from this mission, many research progress has stagnated for a long time, so we have to start working now. Yes, the three little ones said in a long tone. As Xia Yan's shadow clones, they naturally knew this fact. So the three little ones were ready to follow the arrangement Xia Yan had made in his mind before and re-entered the busy research and development work, but Xia Yan then called no. 3. By the way, no. 3. The house hasn't been cleaned for almost a month, you can help clean it and practice wind escape. Also, I haven't washed the clothes on this trip, you can help wash them and practice water escape. Finally, it's almost time for dinner, and I'm a little tired of the scroll food, you can help make some dinner and practice fire escape, after urging the soul-destroying no. 3 to work. Xia Yan also went back to the house and came to the study, took out the scroll that Summit had just given him and put it on the table. Speaking of which, he gained a lot from this mission, and almost made him forget that his goal at the beginning was just this small scroll. I hope the knowledge of the curse seal recorded in it will not disappoint him, otherwise he can only take some riskier methods. After taking a deep breath, Xia Yan opened the scroll. Then he saw that it was actually blank. But Xia Yan was not too surprised. Because this is probably what Summit said about encryption measures. Using sealing techniques to encrypt information to avoid leaks is a common practice for ninjas, so Xia Yan is not unfamiliar with it. After injecting his own chakra into the scroll and removing the restrictions set by Mito teacher, Xia Yan saw lines of text begin to appear on the scroll. To Xia Yan's surprise, these words were not about the knowledge of curse seals, but the warnings left by Mito teacher, repeatedly reminding him not to get too involved in the curse seal. After a while, these words gradually dissipated, revealing the true content of the scroll. However, Xia Yan did not watch it immediately, but was still thinking about Mito teacher's instructions just now, feeling a little helpless. Sure enough, the curse seal is an absolutely untouchable area for traditional sealing techniques ninjas, so much so that Mito teacher would give him various warnings again and again. After all, the curse seal that directly acts on the soul is indeed difficult for the world to accept, and even Mito teacher is no exception. However, Xia Yan also knows that this is just like the doctors in ancient times who dissected corpses in order to understand the human body, which is also not understood by the world. In order to study the nature of chakra, the study of the soul is a hurdle he cannot skip. This is why he chose to learn the spiritual transformation technique that could not be used in actual combat for a long time. However, Xia Yan did not forget what teacher Mito said. Those who play with the soul will eventually be abandoned by the soul. Xia Yan first imagined the appearance of Orochimera in the original work as the white phosphorus snake in the future, and warned himself that he must not become that kind of half-human, half-ghost appearance. Not to mention the Orochimera who appeared at the end of the original work with a greatly changed personality, how much relationship he had with the original him, there was a big question mark. Then Xia Yan began to calm down, quickly browsed the knowledge of the curse seal recorded on the scroll, and then compared it with the information he collected and deduced. After a long time, Xia Yan sat back in his seat, conjured a cup of strong tea and drank it all in one gulp to calm down. Although the scroll simply recorded some basic rules and usages of the curse seal, Xia Yan seemed to see the mountains of corpses and seas of blood hidden behind the lines of these cold words. In order to summarize these still slightly rough rules and usages, how many lives did those guys who studied the curse seal sacrifice? Xia Yan didn't dare to guess. At this moment, he understood more why Mr. Mito hated the knowledge about the curse seal so much. Of course, Xia Yan was not so obsessed with cleanliness that he would abandon it. At most, he decided to donate another sum of money to Nano's orphanage in 2 days to offset the deducted merits, if there was such a thing in the ninja world. Although this scroll that looked like it was written in blood made Xia Yan a little scared, the dry goods in it was still very good. With the help of this knowledge, Xia Yan was confident that he would soon be able to completely crack Danzo's curse seal technique, which could be regarded as relieving a big worry. In this way, he would not need to seek the skin of the tiger and find the spare tire Orochimera to exchange the knowledge of the curse seal. But he still had to go to Orochimera's place. After all, in addition to the curse seal, Xia Yan had many research projects, which made him really unable to do everything. Perhaps outsourcing some projects to Aunt Snake would also be a good choice. Chapter 237. Aunt Snake's T-Balls on Immortality. A few days later, outside a room in a research institute in Konoha. Master Xia Yan, this is the laboratory of Master Orochimera. A beautiful female ninja said to Xia Yan beside her. I told you, just call me Xia Yan. Xia Yan scratched his head with a little helplessness. Although he has been hiding at home these days, with the visits of Kushina, Ikaku-sensei, Fuku and others, he still knows that he has become famous in Konoha because of the scandal with Tsunade. And because of this scandal, all kinds of information about him have been dug out, and even the fact that he is the disciple of Mito-sensei has become known to everyone from only a few people. In the eyes of ordinary ninjas, Mito is basically a legendary figure, and Xia Yan, as her last disciple, is naturally looked up to. That's why the female ninja in front of him is so respectful to him. However, Xia Yan, who always likes to keep a low profile, still misses the days when girls treated him well because of his handsome face, not because of his identity. Then I can go win by myself. Thank you for leading the way. Ignoring the flirtatious glances from the other party, Xia Yan expressed his gratitude and said goodbye to the female ninja. After the female ninja left reluctantly, Xia Yan shook his head helplessly and smiled, then knocked on the door of the laboratory in front of him. In fact, Orochimaru had invited him here before, but Xia Yan was unable to attend the meeting because he went to see Tsunade. Xia Yan originally wanted to use Orochimaru as a tool, and actually planned to find an opportunity to talk to Orochimaru one day. Unexpectedly, he received an invitation from Orochimaru again just a few days after returning. Not long after, the door of the laboratory was opened a little, and then a purple-haired little head that Xia Yan was slightly familiar with was slightly exposed, and looked at him cautiously. Long time no see, little sister Hondo. Xia Yan waved his hand and greeted with a smile. Ah, it's the big villain. No, it's you, the owner of the game hall. Hondo also quickly recognized Xia Yan and opened the door with a look of surprise. In addition to learning the sealing technique at the Research Institute, she spent most of her time in the newly opened game hall during this holiday. So before Xia Yan set out to find Tsunade, Hondo had seen him several times, and naturally recognized him quickly. But she really couldn't think of why this game hall owner and ninja school teacher would appear here. At this time, there was another light sound of footsteps coming from inside. The two looked and saw that it was Orochimaru who had just finished the experiment and came over. I didn't expect that Xia Yan and Hondo also know each other. That saves time introducing ourselves. Orochimaru took off his gloves and said in his unique voice, while looking at the two with interest. Hondo's heart suddenly tightened at this time, and she had an ominous premonition. Then she heard Xia Yan laugh. Ha ha, Lord Orochimaru, you may not know that your little apprentice is a frequent visitor to my game hall, especially Wood Release vs. Zombies. Oh? Wood Release vs. Zombies? Orochimaru glanced at the petrified Red Bean and smiled playfully. Red Bean, didn't you always say that there were too many homeworks and you didn't even have time to rest? It seems that you're just being modest. There is still room for you to increase your study. Red Bean opened her mouth, but as a 5-year-old human cub, she had not yet mastered the skill of quibbling, so she could only remain speechless. All she could do was draw circles behind Xia Yan and curse him after he walked into the laboratory. Oh, as expected, this big villain is my lifelong enemy. Xia Yan, who noticed Red Bean's little action, laughed in his heart. You, little girl, just called me a big villain. Did you think I didn't hear it clearly? And Red Bean's tragedy did not end there. Because soon Orochimaru said again, I'm sorry, Xia Yan, I don't have many guests here, so I didn't prepare anything to greet you. By the way, Red Bean, I remember you seemed to bring snacks for afternoon tea. After Orochimaru assigned a bunch of homework, and sent the mournful Red Bean aside to do her homework, the two sat down, with 2 cups of tea and a few strings of 3-color meatballs on the table. After a few pleasantries, Orochimaru slowly said, Tsunade-sama and I are innocent. Xia Yan suddenly interrupted before Orochimaru finished speaking. It was really because too many people asked him about this issue these days that he had formed a conditioned reflex. However, Orochimaru just smiled hoarsely, and said, Don't worry, Xia Yan, Tsunade has already told me. But you have to be careful. Although Tsunade is not young, she has always been an idol in the eyes of many people in the village. If someone makes trouble for you because of this, I won't be surprised at all. Orochimaru rarely looked gloating, and then said meaningfully, But I don't think you need to worry about you, Xia Yan. Except for a certain white-haired idiot, I'm afraid not many people can really do anything to you, Xia Yan. After all, I heard that you, Xia Yan, could actually fight against the famous bounty hunter Xia. It's really amazing. It seems that you are much better than the last time you sparred with me. This speed of improvement is really scary. Is Lord Mito's teaching level so high? Xia Yan waved his hand modestly and said, Lord Orochimera, you are too kind. I just relied on a few new and strange moves to barely resist Mr. Kakuza's attack. If Lady Summoned hadn't arrived in time, you might not see me now. Orochimera chuckled a few times without commenting, and then followed up on this topic. But I didn't expect that you would meet Kakuza on your trip to find Summoned. In fact, I am very interested in his immortal body that is rumored to be possessed. So I wonder if you, Xia Yan, who have actually fought with him, can satisfy my curiosity. Of course, in exchange, I will also provide some information that you are interested in, Xia Yan. Xia Yan then realized that what Orochimera said before was all for this purpose. Seeing his familiar appearance, Xia Yan knew that he had made such transactions with others many times. That's right, although Orochimera believes that ninjas are those who master ninjutsu, and therefore he is determined to master all ninjutsu, it is impossible to develop ninjutsu one by himself. Exchanging ninjutsu or information with others is a very reasonable and efficient approach. Xia Yan had the same idea when he came to the appointment, so the two of them hit it off immediately. So Xia Yan didn't act pretentiously and began to directly recount the story of his battle with Kakuza. Of course, it was an abridged version specially provided for Orochimera, which only described some details that would help to understand the principle of Kakuza's so-called immortality, and his actions were only mentioned briefly. It was also the wheel of fate, as Kakuza had brought Xia Yan a lot of trouble by exchanging his information for money, and this time it was Xia Yan's turn to use Kakuza's information to gain benefits. Although it was only some details, after listening to Xia Yan's story, Orochimera couldn't help but stick out his tongue and lick his lips, and his golden vertical pupils seemed to be glowing in the dim laboratory. It's an interesting idea to be able to gain immortality by taking someone else's heart. Sure enough, there are still too many secrets in this ninja world that I don't know yet. I don't know whether I should be happy or sad. Then Orochimera reviewed Xia Yan's words again, and then said thoughtfully, if according to what you said, Xia Yan, those black tentacles of Kakuza should not be simple ninjutsu. Xia Yan nodded and said, indeed, those black tentacles are not so much ninjutsu as a kind of strange creature that coexists with Kakuza, just like the Aburama clan's parasitic insect secret technique, Orochimera added. Xia Yan nodded to indicate that he thought so too. Both secret techniques use one's body as a container for a certain creature to live in it, and then use chakra as a bond to achieve a strange symbiotic relationship. So, Orochimera, who understood the principle of Kakuza's immortal body, suddenly lost interest. Obviously, this half-baked immortality was not what Orochimera wanted. It seems that although Kakuza's immortality is genuine, it may not be so easy to achieve true longevity. Orochimera looked at Xia Yan and said, Xia Yan-kun, do you know why? Xia Yan hesitated slightly, but still said directly, is it the soul? Orochimera's eyes lit up when he heard it, and he laughed again. You are worthy at being Xia Yan-kun, you know this too. Few people know a fact that in addition to the aging of the human body, the soul corresponding to the body is also slowly aging. It's just that almost all people have reached the limits of their bodies long before their souls fail and die, so they don't know this fact. Although there are many legends of immortality in the ninja world, they don't involve the field of soul at all. Even if you live for hundreds of years relying on the immortality of your body, you will eventually die due to the exhaustion of your soul. It is not considered true immortality. Listening to Orochimera's comments on Kakuza's immortality, Xia Yan inexplicably had a strange sense of deja vu. What is the snake's T-ball on immortality? Sure enough, Orochimera then sighed. The only people who really have the chance to set foot on immortality are people like Xia Yan and you and me who understand the importance of the soul. The sky did not thunder. So Xia Yan's hand did not tremble when he picked up the tea. After taking a sip, he said speechlessly, Lord Orochimera, I haven't thought so far for the time being. After all, I'm not even 20 years old. Immortality is really too far away. By the way, Lord Orochimera, you're only in your early 30s, right? There's no need to be so anxious. Haha, if I think about it when I'm old, it may be too late. Orochimera, who seemed to feel that he had just lost his composure, ended the topic with the above sigh. Then he drank a sip of tea and smiled slowly. Even so, the information you provided is still very interesting. Then next, it's your turn, Xia Yan. I wonder if there's anything you want to know? It's finally his turn. Xia Yan thought that it would be appropriate to ask about the knowledge of the curse seal indirectly by following the topic of the soul, but with the scroll given by Mito teacher, there is no need to take such a risk. So Xia Yan asked the question he had prepared before. I wonder if you, Lord Orochimera, have ever heard of a ninjutsu that absorbs chakra? End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.